Hello again, everyone. I wonder if you like stories. When Jesus was a little boy, there were no storybooks for children. Most ordinary people couldn't read, so storytelling was very important. Jewish mums and dads would tell their children the stories passed down by their grandfathers since God first made the world. Jesus told lots of stories to anyone who would listen. He also used his stories to teach important things. Sometimes he was even called the teacher. He became famous for his storytelling, and people used to flock to hear him. It worried Jesus that people might go away without really understanding what he was telling them. So he usually took the trouble to explain the meaning of the stories. So before we open our book this morning, let's do our wrap. Let's open the book. Let's take a look. Let's listen and see how good God can be. Oh, let's take a look. Let's open the book. Let's open the book. Let's take a look. Let's listen and see how good God can be. Oh, let's take a look. Let's open the book. Are you ready? The story today is called A Tale of Two Houses. Two men decided to build a house, one each. They looked around God's beautiful land to find the best spot. The houses needed to be near water and fertile ground so that the men and their families could grow crops and vegetables and graze their cattle and sheep. Both men thought it would also be good to have a really beautiful view, so when the day's work was done, they could sit outside, relaxing with their family and enjoy all that God had provided for them. The men, let's call this one Sam, and let's call this one Ben. So each set off to find the right spot to build their house. Sam quickly found what he was looking for, a good view near the water, and collected his tools and set off to work. But Ben poked and prodded and hummed and awed. But he too eventually found a place he thought was just perfect for a house. So they each set to work. Sam, he worked really quickly and had the walls halfway up before Ben had even laid his first clay brick. All Ben had done was to dig a shallow pit. "Get a hurry on, mate," said Sam. As summer approached, "At this rate, your roof won't be on until autumn." Ben said nothing. He just stared at Sam's house and went back to work on his pit. But as he worked, he prayed, "Help me to do this right, Lord. You know the best way to build a house and the best way to live a life. I will trust in you always." "Better hurry on, mate," said Sam. As autumn approached, "My roof's nearly finished. Your walls are only 1 metre high. You'll never be ready when the cold winter comes." Ben said nothing. He just stared at Sam's house and went back to work on his walls. And as he worked, he prayed, "Help me to do this right, Lord. You know the best way to build a house and the best way to live a life. I will trust in you always." "Get a hurry on, mate," said Sam as winter approached. "Bit late for roofing now. My house is finished and we're moving in tomorrow. Snug as a bug in a rug. You'll never be ready for winter." Ben said nothing. He stared at Sam's house and went back to work on his roof. And as he worked, he prayed, "Help me to do this right, Lord. You know the best way to build a house and the best way to live a life. I will trust in you always." Ben finished his house just as the winter storms arrived. Torrential rains began and the winds blew, and soon the river started to rise. On and on it went for days and days. Ben was glad he'd taken such care with the foundations of his house. He'd made sure he found a flat piece of land with a good rocky base. He'd made his clay bricks and built slowly and carefully, making sure everything was watertight. He'd trusted in God to show him the best way both to build his house and the best way to live his life. Ben peered out of his small window just in time to see Sam's house give its first wobble. The ground it was built on seemed to be disappearing into the river. He stared at Sam's house as it swayed and lurched, and then it fell into pieces with a loud crash. And all that was left was a heap of mush on the sliding sand near the riverbank. Sensible Ben was like the people who listened to Jesus and built their lives on what he told them. And foolish Sam was like those who didn't. I hope you enjoyed that story. I'm sure the people who Jesus told to enjoyed it too. So did you manage to work out the meaning of the story? Sensible Sam was like a person who listens to the wise words of Jesus and trusts them. That person builds a good, strong life for themselves, just like the good, strong house. So let's close our eyes for a moment and think about that story. If building a good life means listening to wise words, whose words are we going to listen to today? And whose words will we choose to ignore? Now I'm going to say a prayer, and if you would like to make it your prayer, you can join me by saying Amen at the end. Dear God, help us to listen to those who have wise words to share, and help us to ignore silly ideas. Amen. Thank you for listening, and I really enjoyed sharing that story with you, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye.